The C-Class is the first Mercedes you buy when you stop trying to look successful and start actually being it. The driver is between 35 and 52. Regional manager, department head, doctor, engineer. Someone who has arrived somewhere real and doesn't need to prove it with a spectacle, but isn't willing to disappear either. There are three profiles inside the C-Class. The classic executive. Black, leather, 18-inch wheels, Bluetooth synced to the work phone. This man has owned four C-Classes in a row, not out of brand loyalty, but out of identity preservation. Changing the car would mean changing who he is, and that's scarier than any monthly payment. Then there's the one who buys it used with 70,000 miles and mentions it within the first 5 minutes of any conversation, with a casualness so rehearsed it stopped being casual a long time ago. And finally, the woman between 42 and 55 who chose it because it's beautiful, safe, and because the dealer actually treated her like an adult. She has the most genuine taste of the three and the least need to talk about it. Psychologically, the C-Class is the car of someone who's moved past the need to shout but hasn't reached the point where silence is enough. It's a social tool disguised as a vehicle, and it works perfectly. The E-Class is the man who has nothing left to prove. He's between 48 and 65, already did the C-Class, went through a BMW phase in the years when he needed the car to define him, and came out the other side with a simple conclusion. Silence, space, and a well-tuned air suspension are the closest thing to happiness you can buy at a dealership. He doesn't talk about his car. If someone asks, he answers in one sentence and moves on. This is the car of what consumer researchers call stealth wealth buying quality that only people who really know can recognize. While the entry-level buyer shouts, the E-Class whispers. And the whisper of someone with real authority always carries further than the shout of someone still building it. He comes out of an important meeting, gets in, puts something quiet on, and crosses the city at exactly the speed limit in the right lane without checking the time. At no point during the drive does he think about the car. That's exactly what he was buying. The S-Class comes in two extreme versions with almost no middle ground. The first, the man who could have a driver and chooses not to, because the car is the last place where no one needs anything from him. This is the most psychologically interesting profile, having the power to delegate everything and consciously deciding not to. The second, the one in the back seat with the massage function running and the phone to his ear, for whom the S-Class is simply a mobile office. Both have exactly one thing in common. They didn't ask the price. That is the definitive signal that someone can actually afford an S-Class, not the money in the account. The absence of the question. What the S-Class sells isn't technology. It's the feeling of having completed a journey. You buy it when you have nothing left to prove, and you still choose something that costs over $100,000. That logic is circular, almost tautological, and completely coherent within a certain value system. And the supreme irony is that if you really have one, you don't mention it. The people who talk most about the S-Class are the ones who don't own it. The AMG C63 is what happens to the C-Class when you decide life is too short to drive something reasonable. The owner is between 30 and 48, does well financially, probably better than he lets on, because his clothes are normal and his house is normal. But the car is not normal. That contrast is intentional. It's the signature of someone who doesn't need everything he owns to be visible. Just what matters. He didn't buy a 911 because the 911 has a too familiar image. The C63 is for someone who wants supercar performance with sedan discretion. The attorney who deep down wanted to be a racing driver and found a way to be both. The engine isn't a spec sheet item, it's a statement of values. It says, I made a practical life and kept something raw inside it. Now, Mercedes replaced that engine. The new C63 gets a 4-cylinder turbocharged hybrid, 4 cylinders, in an AMG. The reaction was furious and completely understandable. Because when you fall in love with a sound, that 4.0-liter twin-turbo V8 that had no business being in a family sedan and someone replaces it with efficiency, something dies. The new car is faster on paper, but for its fans it will never be the same. Psychology calls this transitional object grief. The car was part of who you were, And they took it with the best intentions in the world, which is sometimes the worst way to take something from someone. The GLC and GLE are the cars of the organized life. The color-coded shared Google Calendar. The 401k. The we already booked Cabo in November couple. The driver is between 38 and 55, has kids, has a mortgage, and is absolutely certain he needs an all-wheel drive SUV, even though he lives in the suburbs. And the most challenging terrain in his week is the speed bump outside Whole Foods. The all-wheel drive gives him psychological security that has no relationship to actual safety in his real driving conditions. And that's fine, because the psychology of security doesn't require the danger to be real to work. The elevated driving position triggers unconscious associations with dominance. The space signals abundance. And the off-road capability, which he will never use, is a control fantasy. If something happens, I can handle it. That has nothing to do with mud and everything to do with feeling prepared in a world that feels less and less predictable. 3 moments will out you as a city SUV owner every time. Arriving at a campsite and watching a Wrangler handle the dirt path better than your GLC ever could. Standing at the pump watching the total climb on a 70-liter tank and seeing a GLE and thinking next year. Always next year. The G-Class was designed in 1979 for military use in terrain that would destroy anything else. It's square because aerodynamics didn't matter when getting there was the only thing that did. It weighs over 5,000 pounds, gets the fuel economy of a small boat, and in G63 form costs over $220,000. The owners who actually take it off-road exist. They're a glorious 3 to 5%. Everyone else splits into 2 types. The new money buyer who gets it because it's the most expensive and most visible thing in the catalog, all black, because apparently the color gives it gravity, and the celebrity or athlete who has one because everyone in their circle has one. The G63 became, somewhere between 2015 and 2020, the defining accessory of a certain kind of visible wealth. NFL players, rappers, anyone whose dad owns a mid-size construction company in South Florida. The G-Class is a textbook Veblen good. Demand increases as price rises because the price is part of the product. You don't buy it despite it costing $220,000. You buy it because it does. In a market where every car softens its edges to appeal to everyone, the G-Class changes nothing. Its angles are its angles. That kind of take-it-or-leave-it consistency is what psychologists call authentic brand identity. And people will pay anything for authenticity, even when that authenticity belongs to a militarized box truck from the Carter administration. One honest question. If you could afford it, would you buy one? Right, that's what I thought. The AMG GT doesn't need an explanation because the engine provides one. This is not a luxury car with a powerful motor. It's a pure sports car with a Mercedes badge, and the person who buys it knows exactly what that difference means. He's between 32 and 50. The GT is not his only car. There's an SUV for the family, probably an E-Class for the week. But on Saturday mornings, this is what comes out of the garage. He didn't buy a 911 because everyone has a 911. He chose the AMG GT because he knows what a front mid-engine layout actually does for weight distribution, has an opinion about the difference between the GT and GTS and GTR, and wanted something rare enough to mean something while fast enough to back it up. The AMG GT is for someone who has the money of the S-Class owner and the heart of the C63 driver, and found the exact intersection of maturity and irresponsibility. The SL is the automotive answer to a question that only comes up at certain points in a life. What do I do now? The youngest kid just left for college. The house is paid off. Work is good. Life is genuinely good. But something's missing, something connected to the fact that for 15 years, every decision was made for someone else, and this one can finally be yours. The SL buyer is between 50 and 65. He spent 2 decades choosing the practical car. Now he chooses for himself. No trunk space, no back seats, no justification required. Just 476 horsepower and a road that doesn't lead to any meeting. What he's actually buying isn't a convertible. It's access to a version of himself that got frozen somewhere in his early 30s. When the responsibilities came all at once, and the question of who you were had to give way to the question of what role you were going to play. The SL is the attempt to close that gap not in denial of everything that followed, but in conversation with it. The irony is that the person who needs the SL most is the one who questions it hardest. Isn't this too much? What will people think? Shouldn't I get the E-class? No, nothing. And no, you already did sensible. You gave sensible 20 years. The SL is exactly right, exactly now, for this version of you that finally has permission to exist. Top-down, empty highway, something you haven't heard in 15 years on the speakers. For 40 minutes, you're not a director, a father, a husband, or responsible for a single thing. Just someone driving a convertible who feels, for the first time in a long time, completely free. Monday, the real world comes back, but the SL keeps its promise on Saturdays. And at a certain age, that's worth every dollar. 8 models, 8 types of people. And underneath all of it, the same story. Someone chose a car, and in doing so said something about who they are or who they're still trying to become. Tell me in the comments which one is you. And if none of them are, tell me which one you want to be. That counts too.